Good evening. Ira Epstein with your Spider ETF wrap-up, and this is for Wednesday, the 30th of March, 2022, about 5:40 in the evening. You know, I kept thinking today was the last day of the month. I don't know why. I know the poem, so it had nothing to do with that. You get your days off. It's crazy. So, again, we go with the idea on one day, peace talks, things are looking great. We go into the evening in America, at least, and the bombings going on in Europe. What has really changed? Not too much. So it appears that there's redeployment. Another event today, as you know, rubles. And rubles. Russia wants everybody to pay for everything in rubles, and the deadline was to do it now for the oil. Well, that came and went. So now they've decided, the Speaker of the House there in Russia, that maybe everything should be paid for in rubles. Maybe we should do grains, we should do all of our different minerals, our metals that we send out, everything. And I think they're going to go ahead with that plan. And you're going to say why, and I'm going to say they've been wanting to get away from the dollar in the worst way. They hate America. Iran hates America. I mean, I can tell you the countries all over the world want to get away from America. Okay. They want to get away from the SWIFT system. I get it. They have to find other ways. If you're a rascal and you don't want to pay attention to world rules, you try to find ways around it. That's what they'll try to do. It's impressive that China hasn't yet, that I've seen, sent any of the military help that's been asked for. So they sign a paper at the Olympics. They're friends forever and they're real close. Where's that? China knows to a degree where its bread and butter is, and its bread and butter is in the trade it does with Europe and the trade it does with the United States. I don't think it does that much trade with Russia. I think it's the free world that they're doing the trade with, and they don't need the problem. So they'll back them verbally, but we haven't seen anything yet. But this is all coming. What I'm leading up to is nothing changed. We hear the changes, the press plays it up, and the market goes crazy on it. But then within 48 hours, you get to see there really hasn't been a change. And this is just not the plan. The plan is to take Mariupol all the way down, I think, to Crimea, open up that corridor, push back a little bit into the Ukraine, and maybe then Putin will say, within these boundaries, let's have peace. That could be the game plan. I don't know. I'm not in his mind. In BITO, when I look at Bitcoin strategies, you have a gap here. Is that going to be filled? Gaps typically get filled. You gapped up, I'll just give you an idea. You gapped up over here. I can't get it back far enough because there aren't enough days here. And then you came back to fill it, and then you went back. Well, that reminds me of that pattern. I am not predicting that'll happen, but as a chartist, I watch this all the time, and generally they get filled. When we put on the swing line, you can see the pattern is still one of bullishness. You would have to come down and take out this low, 26.31, to do any damage to the chart. The market got over the 100-day average, so when you get through a resistance point on the way back down, it can act as temporary support. The resistance is also the Bollinger Band. How often do you stay outside of a black line or under it? Do you know? 5% of the time. So if that's the case, the people that are buying over that, it's called a sucker play. They're playing on the one time that it's going to do this, that it'll make a break like this. But that doesn't mean you have to sell under it. You can sell other techniques within it if you think that's going to happen, because the odds are you're overpaying too much for a short period of time, maybe for a very long period of time. Momentum-wise, this is where it gets interesting. So right now what I'm looking to see, let me see if I can get this to back off, and it doesn't seem to want to. I don't know why. But if you can get 3 days in a row with the red and the blue going sideways over 80, then it embeds. As long as it embeds, it means that on these breaks, the pros are buying. If the red line closes under 79, it means you're probably going back to this 18-day average. To learn this technique is simple. Take your cursor, move it up right here, click on it. That is where you're going to learn this. It's going to take you right to the areas you need. I'll leave it on during the whole show. Okay? Let's go to the next chart, which is AMC. This is what I think is a sucker play. The market goes up, you're back into this area. I still don't understand the business model. And this is something I know about. I owned a movie theater, so I know about it. I was the money behind it. I ran it. I didn't run it. I had a partner that ran it, and I was the complainer all the time because it never did what it should do. And I learned. In fact, the new business models are worse. Some of the movie theaters are saying, bring your own candy and food in. Where are they making their money? I mean, you have to charge an outrageous ticket price in order to do that. Plus, going to most of the places, you got to pay for parking. If it's you and your wife, babysitter with the kids, it's very difficult. So I have a hard time understanding the business model. But I still think that between these numbers, the pros, they're still bullish. They're still playing it. I'm not. I'm looking at momentum turning down. I think you overdid it. That's a pretty big number. And you were over the Bollinger Band for a few days. Now in Apple, you have the embedded reading. I don't know why that other chart wouldn't do this for it, but day one where you're not embedded. Both numbers over 95 on Friday, over 80. Both numbers over 80 on Tuesday, and today embedded, which tells me now that the market on pullbacks is a buy. It's no longer a buy when the red line closes under 79, and that's where the market says it's probably going back to those moving averages. That's what I think. In XLF, the battleground is right here, the 100-day average. You haven't been able to reach up, if you'll notice, to the upper Bollinger Band. The market today was a buy against this number. If it loses the embedded reading closing tomorrow under 79, out you go. What's the upside target that I think the pros are looking at? Probably the 40.73 level, the upper Bollinger Band. Disney, I think the pros got out of Disney yesterday when it hit the upper band. The first time you hit it is often where pros step out. You'll say, well, it hit it there, Ira, and you left money on the table. Yeah, I don't argue that. But you also caught the whole top of the market there. I can go on and tell you how more times than not it works, but always look at momentum with it too. Remember, you can click up there and find out more about that theory. XLI, here's what I see. Bullish. The market's got higher lows, higher highs, embedded reading. On pullbacks, I think the pros will be looking to be buyers and they'll do so until the red line takes out and closes under 79. And the potential target could be as high as 106.31. In the semiconductors, you got up where I think the pros stepped out of the market yesterday. You got very close, if you look, to the 100-day average and the upper Bollinger Band in a market that's embedded. So I think pros took money off the table. Did they take all the money? I teach that in the course, the technique that I think they will work with. Let's see if I can move that now over here. Yep. XHB, lower highs, lower lows, a downtrend in an oversold condition. Not comfortable with that. Anytime you have readings that are under a 30 level, I consider it oversold. You'd have to be drifting with both numbers under 20 to get super bearish. So yeah, out of favor at this point. You negate the whole downtrend if the market takes out 68.81, but until then, still downside, but oversold. In the energy sector, you talk about getting your head handed to you. This is one of these markets. It's just going to be back and forth on every wave of news out of Ukraine and Russia. And that's the problem you're dealing with. OPEC has not been helpful, as we know, but there's an OPEC meeting coming up. In that meeting, will they change their attitude? They have their own problems with the Houthis. They have their own agendas that they've got to do. They've talked to the U.S. about some defense help. Why? I don't want to help them. Why? Help us when we have an energy problem. Why are we paying this at the gasoline station? We're going to keep doing it so we can enrich Aramco and the other parts that realize eventually the world gets off fossil fuels, so they'll milk it for all they can. If you believe it's anything other than that, foolish you. GLD, higher high, lower low, just sort of drifting around right here. GDX, same thing, no trend. Now it's again, that F1 term, I'm an F1 nut. I subscribe to the channel. I'm up one of these guys at 3:34 in the morning at different times, watching it on the big screen. I love it. But porpoising is the new thing because of the aerodynamics of new cars, and they go like this until they get to a certain ground force. They're trying to beat that, but that's what you do when you get these narrow Bollinger Bands. You're doing the same thing, and you're getting whipsawed in between there. COPEX, higher lows, higher highs, embedded reading. I think this market was being bought. I think the traders are looking to get up there, or the Bollinger Band, or the window envelope. Now, keep your eye. Don't let the market get away from you. If the red line closes under 79, I think you got to be out of long positions. I think there's more brewing here than meets the eye in copper again. I'm beginning to read enough articles, and I read them from all over the world. A lot of people think there's going to be a copper shortage again. You didn't see that happening because if you watch the LME stocks, they grew recently, and yet the price went up. So something brewing here. TLT. This is when you lose a downtrend. And I don't know why my computer doesn't want to let me do all these things. I'd love to show it to you if I could. Let's get off that and see if when I come back to it. Yes, it's doing it. I don't know why. I'll change the batteries. This is an embedded reading. If you get the numbers to close over 21, which you did, out you go. It's the end of a cycle. Now, this has been a phenomenal downtrend cycle. That was one of the better markets of the year to be trading so far. And today it ended that. So long. Goodbye. I love what you did. UUP. This is the dollar. Again, in the porpoising event. Higher high, lower low. We'll see if it can get legs to the downside since it's broken down, but it's not trending. You have a higher high and a lower low. And last but not least, its flip-flop is the euro. Why is it the flip-flop? Because the dollar index is comprised of 40% of euro currency. So they track in an interesting way. It's going to the top side, the dollar to the downside. Even if you move higher here, you don't have a trend and you're overbought. Very difficult market. So if you'd like to learn more about these Bollinger Bands, which you're up against on this, just click up here on this icon. I'm Ira Epstein. I'll see you tomorrow. Welcome. I'm Ira Epstein, and I'm here to talk about my enhanced Bollinger Band course. Now, many of you have taken my regular charting course, and if not, you might think you know something about Bollinger Bands. As you know, Bollinger Bands are an algorithm designed to keep the market trading within it 95% of the time, and on a chart, it will offer on the top part resistance, on the bottom support, and the idea is the market will travel within them. We know that sometimes it latches onto that band, goes up or goes down. Well, how do you play with that? Can you pyramid the positions off that type of thinking? Well, I've applied all three of these into 13 different videos that teach you my concept of it. And from that concept, you're able to work with weekly charts and or daily charts. The 13 videos, each about 7 minutes long. The idea here is not to put you in school forever, but to teach. Now, if you haven't tried my complete futures research, I throw that in as well. Whether you've tried this or not, I think it's worth taking a look at. I think you're going to learn something from there. That research, by the way, covers twice daily market updates for you and access to what I call window envelope numbers, which I think are very important when looking at these Bollinger Bands. The next part is a trial to our charting software so you can make your charts look the same way that mine do. It's that simple. Where do you go with it and how do you get all this? It's simple. You go to our website, www.iraepstein.com. If you go to the word education, everything you need is answered there. You can also call my staff. They'll be happy to help you get set up. I'm Ira Epstein on the road to your education.